Well, hello, Helen. How are you doing? Thank you so much for being on my channel today. Thank you for doing this with me today. Today, we will have a chance to learn more about you, what you do. I know you are a teacher, you are a YouTuber and blogger, and sorry, not YouTube blogger, but traveler. So let's start by learning more about you. Tell us a little bit about who you are, what you do, where you are currently.
And where I will be soon.
Exactly.
All right. Yeah. So I'm Canadian, but I haven't lived in Canada since 2009. Uh, my partner and I left for a round the world trip in 2009 and we never came back. We just wanted to go live abroad again. And we've both been digital nomads for the last few years. So that means we can work from anywhere as long as we have good internet and a few other requirements. Um, and I'm a language teacher. I started teaching English in South Korea in 1996.
No way.
And then I became a French teacher. Um, so I have over 20 years of experience in the classroom, but I started teaching online in 2014. I didn't think I would like it because I like having my students in person and doing all the fun activities in a classroom, but it gave me the freedom to travel and keep working. So I'm happy
Okay.
about it. And currently I have a few students left, but I'm trying to focus more on my videos. So I'm not accepting new students. I have a group also of my favorite students, my long-term students. And I have a lot of projects, but there's just not enough time.
Okay,
What was
and
the question?
no, tell me a little bit more about where do you teach? Because I know you have a YouTube channel, but I don't know if you have like an actual website where people can sign
Uh-huh.
up and like be part of the group or something.
Okay. So people do contact me through my YouTube channel or my website, which is the same name, Wandering French, wanderingfrench.com. But I unfortunately cannot accept new students right
Oh,
now, although I do have a lot of projects, including one for group lessons that would be about Quebec French, and I could accept more students so I could help more people. But people do write to me a lot, and I'm really sorry that I don't have time to take more students right now. And I'm trying to find other Quebec French teachers, and the ones that I found, they're also full. So
okay.
there is a demand for Quebec French teachers, but
So I'm assuming you teach French from Quebec and not the French from France, right?
yeah. Um, Obviously, when I was a beginner teacher, I had this idea, like most people, that Quebec French is bad and it's not proper French and the way we speak is weird. And over the years, learning about things like linguistic insecurity and glottophobia,
Mm-hmm.
and just this movement where people want to reclaim their first language, their mother tongue, even though it may not be the standard or the elite variety of the language. This has all made me realize that it's worth teaching Quebec French because some people want to learn it. Some people want to understand Canadians when they speak French. And the main thing to understand is that written French and spoken French are really different. It
Right.
doesn't matter if you're in Quebec or in France or elsewhere. The written language is the official standard language, and we are not books. We don't speak like books.
Yeah, I agree.
So, so the Quebec variety is, we can talk about it later, but yeah.
Hmm. So, and I know you have a YouTube channel called Wandering French. So tell us maybe a little bit what can people expect? Because I watch a couple of videos, I very much enjoy it. Tell us
Cool.
a little bit about what people can expect if they subscribe to your channel. What can they learn
Uh-huh.
from it?
Okay. The main reason I started that channel was to provide comprehensible input to my students and then to other learners of French. Because even now, there's very little online that
Hmm.
someone who's intermediate in French can listen to and understand. There's a few well-known people, almost nothing for beginners,
Hmm.
and almost nothing for intermediates, and especially not for Quebec French learners. So that was my objective at the beginning, to create content that was easy enough to understand for intermediate level learners, like B1. I was aiming for B1. And then over the years, that was January 2018. And at the time I was living in Bangkok, and I thought, my life is travel. So I can just show my travels, and if someone is interested in traveling, then it's going to be interesting content for them. And a good language teacher should aim to provide compelling, comprehensible input. So they should speak in a way that's interesting, about topics that are interesting, and in a way that's easy enough to understand. This is how the students will acquire the language, really learn it completely and not forget it, not just memorize phrases or vocabulary or try to understand the grammar.
Yeah.
If you understand messages, that's how you learn the language. So that's the objective of my channel, providing interesting videos that are not too difficult to understand. And over the years, I've added different types of videos, one series focusing on Quebec French. I've started 2 series that are for lower level, like A1 and A2, but there's not enough time to make all those videos, unfortunately. And the main thing that I do now, because we don't have a lot of time to work on videos, is I still create 3 French Presso videos every week. So the French Presso videos are like a little shot of espresso, just a little dose of French. It used to be 5 days a week. Now it's 3 days a week. I have over 1,000 of those because it's been like 3 or 4 years, and was 1 a day. So with these, you get a little shot of French in your inbox 3 times a week. That's for people on Patreon. On YouTube, there's 1, and the other 2 are only for Patreon subscribers, but it's not expensive. It's $5 a month or $7-8 Canadian a month for 3 videos in your inbox every week. So that's the main thing that I'm doing. And I'm also traveling a lot. So like recently I left Montreal, and I was in France, and I was in Poland, and now I'm back in Bulgaria, and soon I'm moving to China. So obviously, if someone is interested in travel and they want to hear about travel, but in French, my channel could be a good fit.
Yeah, definitely. And that's why I like your channel, because I'm also very much into traveling. And I was looking for something that was like compelling, because a lot of the videos that I watch, they're very much like structured around like, oh, these are the 10 expressions you should learn if you're going to live here, or this is how you do the grammar. And I enjoy watching vlogs, because I feel like you get to learn the real you get to learn the real language that it's used like on an everyday basically on every day. And that's why I liked your channel, because you're traveling. I saw the videos in France. I watched the videos in Montreal. I just recently watched the other one where you show the house where you grew up when you were a kid. I watched that one. And I like your content because it's like not too long. Like they are good amount. You have some videos which are like probably 10 minutes, but the other ones are like shorter. So it's like you still get to learn even though they're like 2 or 3 minutes videos. So that's why I really like your content, definitely.
Cool. Yeah. And the fact that I add the French subtitles and Daniel translates them into English means it helps make the videos easier to understand. For someone who's not quite at the right level, or there's one word they don't understand, they can turn on the French subtitles, or they can switch to English.
Yes.
So this is a way that I help people understand my videos.
Yes, exactly. So I do want to ask you something, because you said you taught English, and of course you're teaching French. So tell us a little bit about what was the most difficult thing for people learning English, and what was the most difficult thing for people learning French?
Okay. Well, I mostly taught English in Korea to kids and once to adults. And the most difficult thing is the educational system that is very much focused on tests, even more than our system. In Korea, it's all about the test. I've seen the grammar exams that they have to do, and I can't answer those questions. I've never learned, or if I have, I've forgotten about it. I don't know all these complicated grammar words and structures. I speak English, but I can't analyze it. So they're doing the exact opposite of what they need to do if they want to speak English. And I mean, for a lot of people, we are trained to think that that's the proper way to learn a language. You have to study, you have to learn the grammar, you have to memorize vocabulary. If it worked, everybody would speak so many languages. How many people have studied French for years in school? In Korea, they study English for their whole life in school. And for a lot of people, it's still difficult to say hello because they didn't have enough, they didn't get any practice speaking.
Right.
They were just focused on the rules, like they're studying math. You can't speak in math.
Yes.
It's a completely different part of the brain. So that was the most difficult thing for my students learning English in Korea. If they were already in that idea that English is hard and they have to memorize it, you have to make them understand that no, you can just relax, talk with me, we're going to play a game, and then they focus on what they're doing. They focus on communication, not perfection.
Right.
So that's the trick to helping them switch from the language learning mode to just acquiring naturally by listening and reading.
Yes, yes.
So that was for English in Korea.
Yeah, you know what? That's the way I learned English, because I learned English back in Italy, and I had a professor who hated teaching grammar. She was like, I'm not teaching you grammar. I don't care about that. So she would go straight on like speaking to us in English, even though no one would understand. And then we would like read books, we would watch things, and that's how we learned English without an actual base. And actually we were able to speak it at the end of it. So she taught us in a different ways.
Nice.
But for the other languages that I learned, like French, it was very much structured, very like focused on the grammar. And the same thing when I learned German, it was the same thing. It was just about grammar, memorizing, and now I don't remember any words of it. So it's like I spent 3 years studying German and now I don't remember anything. And so I completely lost it. Like I have to start from zero now because I don't remember anything. But the way I was taught English was pretty well. Like everyone in the class knew how to speak English. So that's good. Yeah.
Wow. Amazing. Yeah, there are many factors that influence how someone will learn a language, but one example for me was when we lived in China a long time ago. We picked up Chinese. We call it picking up the language. It means learning it naturally in immersion, which I thought would be impossible. I thought Chinese was so hard. And we lived 3 years in Shanghai, and that was almost 20 years ago. And we visited again this year in the spring, and I was able to communicate. Because I really learned it naturally. I acquired the language naturally through real interactions with people who wanted to talk to me and I wanted to talk to them. And with repetition over 3 years, I was still able to communicate. And I don't know, like I was saying things and I was like, I don't even know what words I said, but obviously they understood me and I got what I needed. That was amazing. Like you said, it sticks in your brain and it stays there if you've really acquired the language.
Yes, exactly. How about Korean? Can you speak that?
Nope.
No? Okay, so you just communicating in English when you were living there?
No, people don't speak English.
Oh no, so what language did you use?
Body language. No, I mean, I know the basics of Korean.
Okay.
But the situation was very different.
Right.
When I was living in Korea than living in China. People are very different. Their attitude is different. The culture is different. People are more shy. It's not in the culture to interact with people they don't know.
Okay.
Whereas in China, people were very curious, very easygoing, very outgoing. Not the idea that I had the stereotype of the Asians would be really reserved. No, in Shanghai, people were very open, very curious, very happy, just talking and laughing. In Korea, people are really shy and it's not in the culture to interact with strangers. And like I said, because of the educational system, English is something they study, but it's not a language that they can use. So it's very difficult to talk to people. And Korean is really hard to learn. The grammar is complicated. Even the sounds are complicated. So that together meant that I never acquired Korean.
Okay.
Because either people spoke to me and I didn't understand, or they didn't, yeah, they didn't talk to me. They didn't know how to talk to me in a way that was easier, partly because the grammar is so complicated.
Okay.
And people are being nice and formal and polite, probably, which makes the sentences even longer. So at one point, I just gave up. Like, I can read Korean, I can order from the menu, I can do basic interactions, but I've never really acquired the grammar
Okay.
or anything. That's a bit of a frustration, but it allowed me to analyze what was different between my situation in Korea and in China. So the language is different, and the attitude of the people around me was very different.
Okay. Yeah, definitely. Got it.
And
And
the same thing in Bulgaria. In Bulgaria,
so
when I tried to speak Bulgarian,
yeah.
people would correct me.
Oh,
So that
okay.
raised my affective filter. I'm very thin-skinned. I very strongly believe as a teacher, you should not correct your students unless it's a major error. If you understand what the person
Mm.
says, don't correct them. But when I would try to speak, the grammar is complicated in Bulgarian, and then I didn't say it perfectly, so they just repeated it like, you have to say it this way. It's like, I'm not even gonna try anymore.
Yeah.
So that's sad. So it's a bit, maybe it's a bit like the French speakers. I think they tend to have this
Correct.
attitude that this is proper French and don't use those words. And so I
Yes.
think it's a bit similar. It makes
Yes.
it more difficult to learn the language, or you have to have a very thick skin and be determined to keep trying, even though people don't have the perfect attitude.
Yes. Yes. I also have experienced that. I think when
With
people
French?
with French, this was like at the beginning. This was like I'm talking about years
Mm.
ago. Um, I remember they would all switch to French, even though I didn't like not to French. They would switch to English when I did not like that. But I was like, I'm very persistent. I'm gonna keep speaking in French. I don't care.
Good
So
for you.
yeah. So now no one does it. I'm very happy about it. But at the
Cool.
beginning, I remember it was like people would just switch automatically to English. But I was like, I can speak. I just have an accent.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
good for
Okay.
you.
So
Our next conversation will be in French.
exactly, let's do that. So going back to the French, is there anything that you can share to the audience when it comes to learning French? Because it is difficult, and I'm talking about the Quebecois.
Mhm.
Any tips that you can share, or maybe even resources that people might find useful?
Uh-huh. I do have a video where I shared a lot of resources. I can share the link later. It's one of my French Presso videos, and I also have a Quebecois sans video where I
Mhm.
talk about how to learn French or Quebecois. But the first thing that I mentioned in one of those videos is exactly what you were saying. Keep at it. Even if people switch on you, they switch to English, tell them, I'm trying to learn French. Can you just answer me in French? And even if they don't, you can keep speaking French. So this is one thing for someone who is in Quebec and trying to practice, be persistent, like you did.
Mhm.
And find interesting content in French, especially Quebec French, if that's what you're interested in. But that's a bit of a challenge. So I listed all the channels that I found on YouTube that had interesting content in Quebecois, and that was not too difficult. There's one that I have yet to add because I only discovered it recently, but anyway. So yeah, find content on YouTube. Um, if you like one channel, stick with it. If you like
Mhm.
a video, keep watching it or
Mhm.
revisit it 1 or 2 months later and see if you understand better.
Mhm.
If you find something that's a bit too difficult, try to put on the subtitles.
Right.
That's going to help you understand. Then remove the subtitles and see if you remember. If now your ear can pick up the words that you recognize when you see them, but you cannot hear them, partly because of the way everything is linked in French. And read. One of my students is progressing pretty fast and he reads a lot, even if it's too difficult.
Okay.
That's partly how I learned English, by reading a lot when I was 16, 17. Reading and watching content. Someone who feels that they need to practice speaking, that's okay. But the main thing is really listening.
Okay.
You can't speak unless you can understand.
Mm-hmm.
And if you can, I've met a few people like that who were able to just talk for 1 hour. That's not a conversation, it's a monologue.
Right.
Because they were not able to understand what people were telling them. So speaking, listening or understanding comes before speaking. So the more you understand, the more you will be able to speak.
Yeah. Yeah.
And understand that we have this desire to speak at some point. When you feel ready to speak, find someone that you can practice with, maybe a language exchange partner.
Yes. Yes. You know, it's so funny that you're talking about listening before speaking, because that's exactly how we learned we learned English at school. Because my teacher, she would just emphasize on this. We're just gonna watch things, listen to things until you can understand the accent and what they're saying. Because she was like, it's easy to ask, how much is this? How are you? And stuff like that. But when it comes to responding or like understanding what people are saying, that becomes difficult. So she would literally make us watch things. She would make us watch like 5 minutes, stop it, make us repeat it, re-listen the same thing again, stop it, take notes. And she was like, it doesn't matter if you don't get the word as long as you understand the sound. So that's what we would like work on. Yeah. Yeah.
So I suppose she was familiar with Krashen's theory, Stephen Krashen?
I have no clue. I have no clue. I have no clue. But yeah. Yeah, she was a top lady. Yeah.
And an effective teacher,
And
apparently.
definitely. Everyone was scared of her because she was so tough, but you learned so much from her. Yeah. And she would make us read a lot too. That was the thing. She would make us pick a book, and she was like, yeah, I don't care if you don't understand, you have to read this book. And then we would try to practice from it. Yeah.
Okay. It seems to me if you were scared of her, that would kind of raise your affective filter and make you less able to learn, but it worked.
It worked. It actually worked. It actually worked.
Cool.
So yeah. So going back to you, and we're almost like heading towards the end of the video. Tell us what's next for you. What are your next projects? I know you're like travel the world, and like tell us a little bit about your next projects.
Okay, next project. Well, in my personal life, we're moving to China in the next 2 months, within a month and a half normally. So expect to see videos in Chengdu, especially. And I do want to work more on my videos. That's why I'm not accepting new students. I'm trying to create, like I recently learned how to use the app to edit TikTok videos. So I'm hoping to try to create content for the Chinese market, since I'll be in China. But of course, I'll keep doing my French presso videos and everything that I'm doing on YouTube. And I have this dream of creating a good conversation class on Zoom, but then I have the planning problem and the time zone problem because I'll be in China and most of my students are in North America. So I'm going to wait until I'm in China to actually build that. But I want to help people understand Quebec French better. And I think an in-person class would be a nice addition to the videos.
Okay. Yeah.
I hope I have time to do it. And eventually a whole course like people do. I have so many videos. I could just put them together and say, okay, this is what you need to understand Quebec French, or just to understand spoken French, and especially Quebec French. The contractions, the vocabulary, and the culture. But yeah, I need many more hours in a day.
I agree. So do I. There is so much that we all want to do, but it's like 24 hours doesn't seem enough anymore. All right. All right, Helen. So I do want to thank you for being here with me today. And before we go, tell us a little bit about where can people find you and connect with you.
Okay, so my videos are on YouTube. So my channel is called Wandering French, and you have several playlists of different types of videos. You can also see them on my website, wanderingfrench.com. It's the exact same thing. If you want more videos, you need to go to my Patreon page, which is Patreon and then Wandering French. There you can subscribe for, I was saying, $5 a month, 7, 8 Canadian, and you get 3 videos every week. Plus the description, and the layout is nicer than on YouTube. So that's what I put most of my time and effort in, like shooting the 1 or 2 minute videos. That doesn't take very long, but then we spend time with the subtitles, and I write more or less long text on the Patreon page with links, and I explain I've used these contractions, and here are videos where I've explained these contractions before. So even people who just sign up now, they can have access to over 1,000 videos, and they can also see all these links of previous videos that they did not see because they're not on YouTube, they're only on Patreon.
Okay.
And I'm also on TikTok now, but I don't have a lot of stuff yet.
Okay, but
I
soon
used to hate TikTok, but I realized that there's a lot of stuff, even
yes.
useful stuff. I found some useful videos to learn Chinese. So I thought, okay, I can make videos to help people learn French.
Okay. Okay, sounds good. Well, I will put all the links on the description so people can go back and subscribe and contact you whenever they need.
Okay.
And again, I want to thank you for doing this interview with me today. This actually concludes the interview. So once again, thank you so much. And for the rest, make sure to subscribe, like, share, and I will see you all next time. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.